Hello, I'm Professor Ben Jones from Leeds Beckett University and Head of Performance of the Rugby Football League. Our talk today is about preparing for success in a World Cup year. Both Leeds and York are host cities for the 2021 Rugby League World Cup in autumn. You'll be hearing from me and my colleagues about how we're supporting the England women's team in preparation for the World Cup. We'll talk about how our research and the facilities here in the Carnegie School of Sport are being used to support the team in their preparation. You'll also hear from coaches and players about how this is being used to prepare for the tournament at the end of the year. Leeds Beckett University have been working with the Rugby Football League since 2018 in preparation for the World Cup this year. This has involved a number of multidisciplinary researchers and academics from the university working closely with the England coaching staff and players across their programmes. The teams have also trained out the Carnegie School of Sport, which has allowed them to access world-class facilities and help them optimise their preparation for the World Cup this year. My role as Head of Performance of the Rugby Football League is to oversee the preparation and coordinate the performance support that are provided to the players and the teams in preparation for the World Cup. There's been a number of staff from Leeds Beckett University that have worked across the World Cup programmes, and specifically on the England women's team. We have sports scientists, strength and conditioning coaches, data scientists, sports and exercise nutritionists and sport and exercise psychologists that have all worked as part of a multidisciplinary team to support the players and the coaches. And we've also been training out of the Carnegie School of Sport building, which has provided a great base, which has allowed us to train during the COVID pandemic. One of the real challenges has been around training in a space which has allowed us to operate while still socially distanced, but still do what we need to do from a performance perspective. And here in the strength and conditioning facility, that's allowed us to do that. Following the Australia and Papua New Guinea tour in 2019, the 2020 preparation season was disrupted by the COVID pandemic. The team that we managed to put together through Leeds Beckett University and the RFL has allowed the players to transition from that, what was a period out of the game, back into that preparation really well. So the sports scientists has allowed players to monitor their loads safely and progressively back into full performance. We've had researchers looking at injury surveillance so we understand where the biggest risks are. The strength and conditioning team have been putting in training programs to allow players to still do what they need to do whilst not being within their teams, but to prepare for the transition back. And then this year, during 2021, we've been training weekly over the winter out of the Carnegie School of Sport building. And then when the Women's Super League started back up, we train more infrequently, once a month or fortnightly. But the team from Leeds Beckett University, working with the England women's coaching team and players, have supported the preparation in that, allowing us to make sure that we're in the best possible place come the World Cup. I'll be now introducing some of the team here from the Carnegie School of Sport who are working with the England women's players. First up is Dr. Stacey Emmonds, Hi Stacey, can you tell us about your role and how you work with the players and the coaches on the England programme?
Hi Ben, my name's Dr. Stacey Emmonds, Senior Lecturer at Leeds Beckett, and I'm also Head of Athletic Development for England Women Rugby League. So I've been with the programme since 2013, so the 2021 will be my third World Cup with the team. So I work alongside Carlos Ramirez and Sean Scantlebury to deliver the athletic development plan to the players, both during England training sessions, but then also providing the players with athletic development support away from training as well.
So you've been involved with England Women now for a number of years, been involved with the team for 3 World Cups. Can you talk us through how you've seen that change?
I think the biggest change has been the professionalism of the game. So when I started with the programme in 2013, there's probably very limited support for women's rugby league players. The World Cup didn't really have much coverage, much exposure, facilities, resources for the girls was quite limited compared to going to the World Cup in 2017 in Australia, where both the men's and the women's programme got equal support, and then now building into this 2021 World Cup, the support provided to players is excellent across all services, from sports science, strength and conditioning, nutrition and psychology. So the players have everything around them now to hopefully go on and perform to the best of their ability.
Okay, so taking into account your coaching experiences, what have you seen make the biggest difference to the team?
I think the biggest improvement has been the athleticism of the players, and I think that's come due to the increased provision that are being provided to the players. So when I started with the programme in 2013, we had very limited contact with the players over the years and months leading up to the World Cup, and it was only really in sort of that last 3 or 4 months that we had increased contact. In the build up to this 2021 World Cup, we've really been building since the last World Cup. So we've been able to go out to Australia for the World Nines and then a tour to Papua New Guinea in 2019. And then obviously pandemic's kind of limited what we've been able to do, but we've been able to maintain training. So we've been having contact with the girls frequently, so almost every 2 weeks. So we've been able to support the players with that athletic development, and I think we're seeing that increase in athleticism of the players now transferring over to performance in the pitch, and we're seeing differences between girls who are in the England programme compared to girls that aren't, and I think that's going to really put them in a good position going into World Cup.
Okay, and Stacey, what research have you done that you've seen actually improve the performance of the players and help support the coaches in their practices?
So we've collected GPS data across the World Cup games. So when we were in 2013, we collected variables such as total distance, high speed running, accelerations, decelerations, what the players physically did during the games. And then we've also collected that in the Super League as well. So the domestic game in England. So we've been able to compare the two. So what players have to physically do in international games compared to what they do domestically in Super League games. And we've been able to use that information to inform what we do in training. So working with Sean and Carlos, we've been able to design training drills that replicate those almost hard periods of games, of World Cup games, and expose players to that in training. So both physically, they're then prepared to deal with that once they're in a World Cup game, but also mentally they know that they can physically get through those tough periods of a game.
And how do the facilities here at Leeds Beckett University help you in your role as strength and conditioning coach for the England women's team?
The facilities at Leeds Beckett are excellent, and the new sports facilities, the new gym facilities are world class, and that's had a huge impact on our programme. So previously, when we trained, we only had field access. So any gym programmes they had to be programmed remotely for players to do away, and probably what we realised with the players, the biggest deficit in their athleticism was probably around their strength and the importance of strength for underpinning other physical qualities that were important for rugby league. So being able now to get players in the gym for every training session at Leeds Beckett, we've seen huge improvements in players' athleticism and players' strength. And we're seeing that have an impact on other physical qualities that are on the pitch. We're then able to use the facilities and the resources to physically profile the players. So we know we're using the best technology when we're testing, that we're getting valid and reliable results. And then we have access to the wider provisions, so we can deliver player education at the same time during those training sessions and sort of really maximise all those opportunities we have with the players.
Thanks, Stacey. That was really interesting. Next, I'll be speaking to Dr. Sean Scantlebury, a postdoctoral research fellow here at Leeds Beckett University, who's also working with the England Women's Rugby League team. Hello, Sean. Can you introduce yourself and tell us about your role with the England Women's Rugby League team?
Hi Ben, I'm Sean Scantlebury. I work with the England Women's Rugby League team as a sports scientist, and I support Stacey Emmonds as a strength and conditioning coach. My research with England Women's Rugby League and more broadly the WSL focuses on reducing injuries within the game, and the way that we're looking to achieve that is through a range of different projects. So looking at the anthropometric or physical qualities of female rugby league players, looking at the match demands, so for example how far and how fast the players run within a game, and then also on a broader scale collecting injuries across the entirety of the WSL across a full season of training and match play.
Sean, can you tell us about the research that you've been doing both with the England women's team but also the Women's Super League, and how that's being used to help the team prepare for the World Cup, but also beyond the World Cup as well?
Yeah, so fortunately we've been able to work with the entirety of the WSL, so every single club has participated in an anthropometric and a physical profiling of their players, so looking at their height, their weight, their body comp, their strength, their power, their speed and their fitness. And what this has given us is a really good overview of the current fitness standards within the WSL. So specifically, we can use that with the England women's team to have a look at where our players are situated in comparison to all the other WSL players. So can we identify some strengths of the players? Can we identify some weaknesses of the players? And that'll help formulate our training programs. So think about how we can sort of manipulate players' training programs to ensure that they're in the best possible condition going into the World Cup. And I think as well as that, we've also been able to use the match demand data. So some previous research by Emmonds looked at the match demands of the previous World Cup. So by GPS in the WSL games, we've been able to have a look at what the current intensity levels are like within the game. So how fast are players running? How frequently are they involved in collisions? And we've been able to use that to help prescribe training. So to ensure that our players are able to meet the standards that they're going to come across when they enter the World Cup.
And how are the coaches using the research specifically to help their training practices and the performance of the team?
It's been really useful because the way that we've been able to visualize the data, particularly for the anthropometric and the physical profile, is a way that all the players' data is anonymized, and then that is then shown in a data visualization tool that allows the coach of each WSL club to evaluate where their player sits in comparison to all the other WSL players. So they get a really good overview of where their squad is from a physical perspective, and if there are certain players that excel in certain areas, whether that's speed or fitness or power, or if there's areas that perhaps as a squad they're lacking slightly. And as I said before, help with training prescription, and that coaches will be able to evaluate the strengths and weaknesses of their sides and then formulate training programs based on that. I think more broadly, the injury quantification work that we've been doing is been really important, because we've been able to get an idea of not just how frequently injuries occur within the WSL from training and match play, but also the types of injuries, how are they occurring, what are the most common injury sites. So the way that we can use that information is trying to decipher certain areas that might be more at risk, or is there certain activities that are putting players at a greater risk of injury throughout match play. So once we've identified what could be some more common injury types, events that lead to injury, we can then look to put in intervention strategies and have a look at how we can try and reduce the amount of injuries that are occurring through WSL matches. And it's a similar sort of thing with the match demand data, because by being able to identify the demands of the game from a running perspective, so how fast, how far players are running during a game, it gives us a better understanding of how we can prescribe training to help players to ensure that they're able to meet the demands of the game. And as I said previously, in comparison, having a look at their physical data and the anthropometrical data, alongside the match demand data, we can start to have a look at whether, for example, fitter players are able to perform at a higher intensity during match play, which helps just formulate a really good holistic overview of the current demands of the Women's Super League.
And what support do you get from Leeds Beckett University to help you undertake the research that you're doing?
The support that Leeds Beckett University have offered is absolutely first class, not just working with a group of extremely talented individuals that we can share ideas with and work with on a daily basis, but the facilities, particularly of the Carnegie School of Sport building, is world class. Not just the strength and conditioning suite, but the running tracks, the playing fields that we have here has provided a really, as I said, world-class foundation for the players to come in and train in preparation for the World Cup. And in terms of my research, it couldn't really go ahead without the help of Leeds Beckett University in terms of the apparatus and the facilities that they're able to provide, whether that's GPS units. We actually had sufficient GPS units to quantify the entirety of the Challenge Cup final, for example, because we had enough units for each team to wear GPS units, but also from a physical testing perspective, all the equipment and the apparatus that we need to be able to have a robust testing battery is provided by Leeds Beckett University. So in terms of the support that they provide is truly first class.
Thanks, Sean. That was really interesting. Great work. Thank you. Next, we'll be speaking to Sarah Chandler, a lecturer in sport and exercise nutrition here at Leeds Beckett University, who's also working with the England women's team in preparation for the Rugby League World Cup. Hi, Sarah. Can you tell us about your role with the England women's team and what you're doing from a nutrition perspective to support the players and the coaches?
Thank you, Ben. Hi. In terms of my role with the women's team, I'm the performance nutritionist with the team. I generally then take care of the squad system nutrition stuff as well as any individual nutritional issues that pop up. And the idea is just to make sure that the nutrition matches the overall plan around training and match loading, etc., just to optimize their physical development, basically whatever happens before they get on the pitch.
So nutrition is obviously a big factor for the players, both in their preparation and recovery. What specifically have you been doing with the players to support them get ready for this World Cup?
So I've been working with them probably for the last 18 months, give or take. And yes, we've been working on just optimizing their nutrition working into the World Cup. But obviously that has quite a few different phases in it. So there's pre-season as well as the season in terms of the league, as well as the England component as well. So I do tend to have to work on different things at different time points. But nutrition is one of those things that's quite nuanced around when and how and what is the point of each phase. And obviously they're working in closely like with the other people in the multidisciplinary team. So it obviously works in phases with them as well.
Okay, and what do you see the main priorities of the role are working as a nutritionist within the team?
I think it depends, as I said, around the phasing. So the priorities will generally change. It also depends if it's working for the whole squad and the team or whether it's working with individuals specifically. Individuals' priorities could be anything from optimizing their body composition, which is usually where people think nutrition is the first port of call, which it is, but it also just depends as to what phase we're in as to how important it is. Otherwise, it's looking at match day strategies or training strategies around pre and post intakes and making sure that we fuel up and recover from our training and matches. So I think that those are just some of the things that I maybe get myself involved in. With the World Cup, it would be for traveling as well, but because we're not traveling very far because we're staying at home, it does depend a bit on what the hotels are doing. So I'm obviously involved in that type of stuff when we get closer to the tournament.
And how have you been using the facilities here at Leeds Beckett University to help provide the players with the optimal nutrition support?
So what's really nice is that we're based at the Carnegie School of Sport for a lot of our training. So since the building's actually opened, we've had the option to use the gym. And I actually find that in terms of doing my work with the individuals, I actually spend a lot of time in the gym in between things. So I will do small sort of time point works with different players while they're busy doing their strength and conditioning, just because once they're on the pitch, I don't have a lot of time to talk to them. And they are quite time bound already. And in terms of other things that are always available, so we actually have just built new kitchens upstairs that are for teaching purposes. But if I have something in terms of like working with academy or younger age groups, I often find that it's quite nice to start looking at the fundamentals around cooking skills. So if anyone's got a clear gap where they need support around teaching them how to chop or cook something, we can use the kitchens to be able to facilitate that. But it depends a lot on the level of the players that we're dealing with, and obviously just where they may feel they might be lacking.
Thanks, Sarah. That sounds great. So next up, I'll be speaking to Ross Shand, a research fellow here at Leeds Beckett University and a chartered sport and exercise psychologist who's working with the players and the coaches in the team. Hi, Ross. Thank you for coming today and sharing your experiences and what you've been doing with the England women's players.
Cheers, Ben. So my name's Ross Shand. I'm a chartered sports and exercise psychologist. My involvement with the England women team is as a sports psychologist, so I'm helping ultimately the mental side of sport and performance, really. So working with the athletes to enhance confidence, motivation, develop resilience, things like that.
So as a sport and exercise psychologist working with the players, where do you see you make the biggest difference in preparation for the World Cup this year?
So my role as a sports psychologist probably covers a few different areas, and you could probably split that down into individual work, so kind of one-to-one conversations with players, and that might be around helping them maintain focus in a game after making a mistake. It might be building confidence going into competitions and making sure that their prep's correct and helps them get into kind of the optimal kind of state of mind for their performance. Also at a group level, so kind of working with the group, potentially delivering some workshops to the whole squad, and also working with the leadership group there to get an understanding of mood in the camp is, and feeding that back to the coaching staff, and identifying how we can really build a squad mentality and a team mentality. And then I suppose the final element is working with the coaching staff, so coaching and support staff. So I kind of have conversations with Craig and the other coaching staff around how do we foster a strong kind of group mentality and a group identity, and that's kind of moving into, okay, so what are some of the things that we can be doing in the build up to the World Cup and in the World Cup camp itself to support and facilitate that, really.
Okay, and Ross, can you explain where you make your biggest focus with the players around their preparation?
Yeah, so in my role I focus on enhancing kind of performance from the mental side of sport, and that'll be focusing on enhancing athletes' confidence, helping them to develop focus in game if they've made a mistake, or retain focus, regain focus if they've made a mistake. It generally kind of falls into three areas, my work. So individually working one-to-one with athletes and addressing their specific needs. Also as a group, so working with the whole squad, and that might be in some kind of presentation form or workshop form with regards how do we function effectively as a team, and also kind of maybe delivering some kind of key information around certain kind of psychological skills or characteristics that might be useful for them on the pitch. And then working with kind of coaches and support staff as well, so engaging with the coaches to understand how do we build that kind of group mentality, team mentality, and what are some of the ways in which we can facilitate that in the training sessions that we have, but also as we move into kind of the World Cup camp as well.
Women's Rugby League has seen a huge increase in both focus and professionalisation, and we've seen that. Where do you see your role as a sport and exercise psychologist in supporting the players in dealing with this and coping with the increased pressure?
I don't think it's something I've probably directly supported. I think there's many different support mechanisms around the women's game. That includes, we have player welfare managers and kind of other rugby league charities such as kind of Rugby League Cares, State of Mind. But I think collectively we're all trying to help the players navigate this transition from what was an amateur sport kind of through this professionalisation into kind of hopefully a full-time professional league that's highly competitive. Beyond the England senior team, there is kind of developmental programs in place that I work on, and as part of that, those kind of young developing female players are getting education into how to conduct yourself and conduct media interviews, things like that, understanding the importance of their kind of individual profile and brand through things like social media and how to use social media effectively. So it's not something I've kind of directly spoke with the players about, but I do think there's many mechanisms around the game and around the younger developing athletes coming through that's helping them to navigate that transition.
Thanks, Ross. That's great to hear about the support that the players and the coaches are getting in preparation for the World Cup. I'd like to thank everybody who contributed to the discussion today. It's fantastic to see the breadth of support that the players and the coaches have been provided from some genuine multidisciplinary experts in the field. So thank you, everyone. We're now going to go to a panel discussion with some of the players and the coaches to hear both about the evolution of the women's game, but also specifically around what they're doing this year and the support they're receiving in preparation for the Rugby League World Cup this autumn. Okay, so thanks everybody for making the call today, where we're going to discuss about the England women's preparations for the upcoming World Cup this autumn. Can you all introduce yourselves and share your involvement in rugby league, in the women's rugby league, and what you currently do, please? Emily, you start.
Yeah, hi, my name's Emily Rudge. I am a player for England Women and for Saints, and I've been involved with the Women's Rugby League for about, I've been playing rugby league for nearly 20 years now, and obviously been part of the Super League for like the 3 years that it's been running.
Vicky?
Hi, my name's Vicky Molyneux. Currently play for Wigan Warriors and England. I've been involved for 20 years, on and off, with a little bit of a gap in the middle of my career. And I've been playing in the Women's Super League for the last 2 seasons.
Dave?
Yeah, my name's Dave Rotherham. I'm the Rugby Football League's Chief On-Field Officer. I played the game at most levels. I've coached at all levels. I even did a little bit of coaching in the women's game back in 2017. And I've got a daughter that plays in the Women's Super League as well.
Fantastic. And Stu?
Hi, I'm Stu Barrett. I'm the National Performance Manager for the women. I've been involved for the last 18 months running the women's programme and also running the Diploma in Sporting Excellence for 16 to 18-year-old. Previously to that, I coached for 16 years in the Men's Super League.
Great stuff. So, Stu, so we're just over 3 months out from the Rugby League World Cup. Can you talk us through how the last 6 months is preparing the players for the World Cup?
Yeah, strangely enough, the last 6 months during the last lockdown, I think have actually been beneficial to us as a national squad. Due to the domestic games ceasing to operate both training and competition-wise, we were still allowed to train as a national squad under the elite framework. So it allowed us to have a lot more contact time as a group. We put some big blocks of training together, which usually we wouldn't have been able to do at this stage of a season. And that's enabled us to not only develop technically and tactically, but also, more importantly, I think physically, because the girls have come off a break from the previous season, pre-COVID. They've actually attended all our training sessions fresh without the rigours of weekly competition. So it's allowed us to put a lot more development into them that way. And we've also done a lot of online teaching education around all the other aspects it takes to be a player. It's great they're now back into the domestic competition, but I think the benefits we'll see coming up to the World Cup of the last 6 months will have been a great enhancement to us.
Great, thank you. And Emily, how have you seen preparation for this World Cup differ from what you've experienced previously before the 2017 World Cup?
Yeah, I totally agree with what Stu said. I think that this last sort of 6 months has been great preparation going into the World Cup. I mean, we've had a lot of training and it's been, I think, for the England girls, massively beneficial. In terms of the differences for 2017, I just feel like it's really stepped up this year and sort of the build up to this World Cup. It just seems like we've got a lot more additional support. The likes of having like the nutritionist and the psychologist support, and as well as the S&C support that we've had has been incredible. It was good going into 2017, but I think this has just been brilliant. And it has definitely been the best support that we've had, that I've ever experienced just having. So yeah, it's been really good.
Okay, thanks. And Dave, what have you seen being different in terms of preparation for this World Cup compared to previously from the governing body's perspective?
Yeah, I think, Ben, that as a governing body, that we've got some very clear strategic goals about England performing well on the field, and that's all the disciplines of men, women, wheelchair, certainly with 3 home World Cups, which is quite a unique situation. And from a governing body point of view, we wanted to be able to give England the best chance we can of winning 3 World Cups on home soil in 2021. We've been very lucky that we've got that support from our board of directors down. The advent of Women's Super League has touched on what Stuart said before, that we are able, if you like, it's our competition, and we can manipulate the domestic competition to suit the England programme and build England activity in the annual calendar, which has really, really helped, which gives the girls opportune moments to prepare, where in the men's game, we don't have that luxury because the Super League is full on every week. We're very lucky as well that we received some generous funding from Sport England, a national sporting organisation that fund talent and performance. And the work that we've done with the women's programme over the last 4 years, by being able to send them on a tour to Australia and Papua New Guinea, to be able to provide these opportunities that Emily's talked about, by having that richer multidisciplinary support, to certainly put the squad in a great position, and something that we're now underpinning as well with a more formalised, coherent talent pathway for women and girls.
Fantastic, thank you. And Vicky, from a player's perspective, obviously that we've seen an increase in investment and commitment for the women's players, both internationally and domestically. How have you and other players dealt with the increase in standard and pressure that's placed on the players?
I think if I'm honest, at times it can be quite demanding. But in terms of all the support that we've been given, both at club level and at England, it's something that we're able to cope with, probably in comparison to previous years, like Emily said. I think in terms of the demand, I think everybody relished the opportunity to step up and sort of take the opportunity with both hands, put everything that we've got into it, mentally, physically. And with the well-structured programme, it's not felt as demanding as probably it might have done without the additional support and without the structure, and everything's been well planned and following this sequencing to allow us to peak at the right time and not only sort of develop as the league progresses at club level, but hopefully then at England level sort of shine and stand out.
Good stuff. And Stu, how have you found that the new players that have joined the squad, how they dealt with the standard of the expectation that's placed on our England players?
I think one of the most important things we did this year was form a senior players group, and they've set the standards of the group as well. So I think new people coming into that group quickly realised that standards are set and what we're aiming and hoping to achieve as a group. But they've always been welcomed in, and they soon realised that this is probably the next level up from club level. But like Vicky said, they're actually relishing that challenge and they want to be pushed further. And with the support of all the staff and the players around them, I think they've all adapted really well.
Okay. And Vicky, how have you found supporting the new players as they've transitioned in?
Well, I would consider myself relatively new into this current format. So I think sort of that empathy, understanding what it is like to be the new person, not only in a team environment, but with the whole setup and with that expectation that is upon you. I think to support the new players, it's just making them feel welcome. Again, we make mistakes, but that's how we're going to learn and progress and hopefully be the best that we can be. And I think just everybody's, been so welcoming with everybody, and we've been making a real conscious effort to mix. So, for example, particularly being a Lancashire-based team, the mixing with the Yorkshire players hasn't really happened as such prior to the programme starting up, really over the last 6 months when the two squads and the two sides combined. So everyone's just been making that collective effort to get to know each other, to support each other, checking in with each other, sort of through social media and obviously when we're in person as well. So it has been sort of everyone just everyone going through this journey together and making sure that everyone's okay.
And Emily, how have the more experienced players dealt with this transition, this change in terms of increasing expectation?
I think the players have enjoyed it. I mean, speaking from personally, I think it's been brilliant. I've really enjoyed sort of the step up that the programme's taken this year, and I think that we can see that the RFL are sort of putting a lot of time and energy into developing the women's side, and the support that we've got has been great. So I think seeing that is just so positive, and it's only going to hopefully help the girls to buy into the programme even further and hopefully get better results from us all in a performance sense. So I think, it's the more experienced players have just massively enjoyed it and the opportunities that we've got now.
Okay. And one of the areas where we have seen significant investment is in around the sports science support and the research around the women's game, given that the game is still relatively new compared to the men's game in terms of the research and the evidence base. How have you found the additional support that the RFL have invested in support your training and performance as well?
I think the support's been incredible. I've really enjoyed the sort of the S&C support that we've had. I think this is the first time I've ever had like the data to back up the things that we're doing on the field, and after every England training session, we're getting to see those figures, how many meters you've run, how many high speed meters you're covering, and all this sort of like intricate data from your personal performance within training and within the matches. I think that's massive, and it definitely helps you to get a better understanding of you and the expectations, and they can compare that then to sort of England and the previous World Cup and the standards and of the figures there, which just gives you more of a goal and something to work towards. So that's been excellent. I think the training programs that have been put together are the best that we've had. They've been really personalised. Each player's got like individual goals suited to them, and then the programs have been personalized to players' like strengths and weaknesses and what they need to work on, which again, first time that's ever happened. It's normally just like a blanket program for everyone, so I think the preparation there is a lot better. It's a lot more personalized, and I think from that hopefully we will see a lot better results.
Great stuff. And Vicky, what have you found, and how have you found training out of Leeds Beckett University's new build?
Yeah, the facilities are fantastic, and just to be able to have access to that and the support of the SNCs around you. I think for a lot of the most inexperienced sort of gym goers as such have really sort of benefited from that in terms of obviously the technique and support and what's required to follow these programs. The nutritionist for me has been really beneficial as well, having that to hand. And I think a lot of us would agree that a lot of us have never been in as better shape than we have it at this current time. And obviously we're still striving to become fitter and stronger on a weekly basis. But it's showing and it's paying off. The support and the resources and the facilities that we've got access to is just, you can see the difference that it is making. It's been superb.
That's fantastic. And Dave, how have you seen it impact the Women's Super League and the game more broadly?
Yeah, the Women's Super League's been going since 2018, and Emily will remember the times when she was playing at Thatto Heath. They trained on a Wednesday night for 90 minutes, and that was it. But now, Vicky and Emily are at clubs that have got big brands, and they expect high standards. It doesn't matter who's playing in the jersey. And what you're seeing in Women's Super League is slowly becoming more professional, where they train more frequently, more intense. And if you've, those people who've watched on the BBC the last few weeks, where you've had Women's Challenge Cup semi-finals, the Women's Challenge Cup final, the tremendous athleticism and skill that you see in it, even at club level now, it is a massive improvement since the time when they were in the last World Cup. And that's down to the commitment of the players. You can tell from what Vicky and Emily have said here and just listening to them for the last few minutes that that they've got lots of things around them. They've absorbed a lot of new information, and that they've took it upon themselves to be committed to do this. And I can see it in some of the younger players, certainly around my daughter's age, who have they've got a lot out of the Women's Super League, and it's given them a huge amount of self-esteem, self-confidence to be able to carry that off and be really confident about themselves. So, there's certainly the clubs stepping up to the plate and providing great opportunities for their players, and that's rubbing off at England level with the great attitudes that the players show.
Fantastic. And Stu, how have you found the increased level of support and research that's ongoing in the game?
I think it's been excellent, and it's just what we needed to take England to the next level. But also Women's Super League, I think the research and the data and the support that we're offering at the National Performance Squad, we're hoping to take that information down and filter that back to the clubs and support the clubs and show how we can develop programs together and raise the standards together of the actual competition going forward. So it's benefiting England at the top level, but I also think it's going to benefit the whole of the Women's Super League competition over time as we develop all our information and research and offer that support to the clubs as well.
Fantastic, thank you. So I hope that everybody enjoyed the insight into how the team have been preparing for for the upcoming World Cup, and also how the work that we're doing now is going to be used for future years in supporting the women's game grow even more. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the talks today. I hope you found it interesting on what happens behind the scenes at Leeds Beckett University. You can find out more about the Carnegie School of Sport by visiting the website at leedsbeckett.ac.uk/CSS.